Andrea, tell me a little bit about your story.
So my story is when I was probably about 18 years old, I had 3 small kids and I was in a very domestic violence, pretty rough relationship since I was 16. So I was in Hope Haven waiting to receive an apartment, and we had to leave every morning at like 7 or 8, and I would have to go walking with the kids because they wasn't in school or daycare and I didn't have a job at the time. And where I had previously left that relationship, they had put me there because they didn't have room in the safe house. So every time I would leave and go to the library, somebody at the library said, "Have you heard about Oasis?" And I said, "No, what is that?" And they started telling me about it. And also I had a friend that would come do laundry every day, and I asked her about it, and she told me a little bit about it. So I was like just drawn, like God had told me to go there, that I needed to go there, that there was resources there, other than Hope Haven. So instead of me leaving in the morning and going to the library or wandering around Kingsport, where was I going to go, and worried if my spouse that I was with was going to find me, and hurt me again or possibly take the kids, I would go to the Oasis. And I started doing Bible study. I did cooking class. I met you, and you actually brought my inner Christian holiness, everything back out of me that I thought I had lost because I had got so far into the world, I thought it wasn't there anymore,
Yep.
But whenever you showed me that it was still there and that God was still waiting for me and He would always be with me, He's never left me, then that's when I started realizing, hey, now I know what I need to do. I've got all this support with Hope Haven, Oasis, and I finally had somebody who I felt like I was I felt like they wanted me and my kids to be there, like we were involved, like we were part of a family. I wasn't just there and not felt like I was part of a family. And after that, I realized I need you, Jesus. So I surrendered my all to God and turned my life back over to Him. And I knew that after that, He was going to guide me and my kids where we needed to go, and that there was a head of protection over us. And then whenever I received my apartment and I moved into my apartment and me and the kids started going back to church and everything, I just knew that, okay, this is where I need to be. But God also told me the reason why I put you through what I did, not because you're perfect. I put you through all the seasons I did so you could one day reach somebody like you. You could help somebody like you, or all kinds of people like you. And so I always wanted to look for that. Even when I would go to the Oasis, I would just feel so wanted and be like, wow, there's so many women just like me, just never met them, or wow, there's a woman struggling like I used to. Maybe I can be her friend and help guide her. And always let her know, or let anybody know, the main person you need to turn your life over to is Jesus. Because, without anything, God is really the one who decides all of anything that you go through. That's what I've had to learn the hard way. You always got to put your life, can't put one foot in the world and one foot in Jesus. You got to put your all to Jesus, or things won't go the way you expect. You're always going to struggle. You're always going to have hurt. You're always going to wonder why. But if you turn your life over to God, if you turn your life over to God, then it's easier for you to understand the triggers or understand the devil. It's easier for you to be like, okay, that's the devil, I rebuke him. Just keep pushing forward.
What would you say to that when people stereotype, when they look at people a certain way, and you've lived through that? What would you say to that?
Just be kind. Be kind to all the homelessness, because like I said, I remember leaving the Hope Haven, and I was homeless, living in a homeless shelter with 3 small kids. And on my walk to the library, I would get, cars would about hit me and the kids in a stroller. I was pushing them in a stroller. Before that, I didn't have a stroller, so I was having to carry one on my hip and, you know, let the other two hold hands. The looks I got at the library at first, you know, the gawking, the stares, made me feel like I was a nobody. Like, being kind to somebody goes a long way. You know, if I had just that one person, which I did in Oasis, you know, that's what really had me going every day. And the Hope Haven, giving me a place to live with my children. Because I feel like if I would have looked into the people that were judging me and thinking I was this, that, and whatever, you know, because as soon as somebody would meet me, they would think I was an addict or, you know, or whatever they would think I was. And that was just not it. So if I would have looked at that and said, okay, I'm going to base this on how I live with my children, how I raise my children, I would have never made it. And that's what I strive for every day. I will pull over on the side of the road. If I see somebody struggling, I just want to talk to them because I know I remember being that person. My father was that person, you know, and people were mean to him because he was homeless on the streets. And I feel like if he just had a couple of people just be nice to him every day, he could have kept going and kept succeeding in life and kept doing the things he needed to do.
You were a product of a situation that if there wasn't resources for you to be able to get out of, you might have been dead, lost your life.
Yeah.
So abuse is something that doesn't just affect people that are in poverty. It affects people of every walk of life in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're raising children and you're the one taking care of the children, in a lot of situations the male is bringing home the money, but they're also being the abusive one and they're also being the controlling one.
Yeah.
So tell me, how hard was that to make that choice to get out of that situation?
It was hard. So I met him when I was 15 years old, you know, and then I got married to him when I was 16. And so I felt like I needed to marry him for the world to not judge me. For one, you know, here I am with a baby and at a young age already, you know, and I was like, well, maybe I need to just stay with him. You know, it's okay. It's going to get better. He paid all the bills. He worked. I stayed home with the kids. It was really hard because every day the abuse would get worse and worse and worse. And I would have to tell myself just to overlook it. It's going to go away. Just overlook it. It's going to go away just by. So the hardest part was, I remember it like it was yesterday. He was gone to the store. I think I told him to go get some formula. And I had already had everything packed and ready to go because I knew deep down inside of my heart, God was telling me, get out and get out now. Or I was going to lose my children because of getting abuse. If I would have stayed in that, you know, anything could happen. Either way, he could have ended up hurting me to where the kids wouldn't have been taken care of because they would have had to stay with him, you know, and for him to raise them or whoever or whatever, you know, the situation could have been. So when I left and was running from him, it was so hard because I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. All I knew is that God was in my heart and I still trusted him even though I had turned away from him. I just knew, but it was scary. It was the scariest thing I've ever went through, honestly, and God always reminds me where I came from.